So this is the help video for application 112. This is our mixed polynomial practice, so you could see adding, subtracting, or multiplying these polynomials. Um, and these problems that we've decided to give you are what we call error analysis problems. And error analysis problems are just problems where you see a problem, it's already been worked out, but there's a mistake somewhere, and it's your job to find that mistake. You've seen problems like this before in previous lessons, but we got a lot of questions about how to work them and what we meant by finding the mistake. So I decided to make this video to kind of help you see how you should approach a problem like this. So the problem we're given is Harry is working on his math homework and he sees this problem. Here's our original problem. And what we're given below this problem is Harry's work. And our job then is to explain to Harry what mistake he made and how to find the correct solution. So when I'm doing an error analysis problem, what I like to do is just work through the problem on my own and then compare my work to Harry's work to see if I can find where they differ, and that probably will give me a good indication of what his mistake was. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy down my problem. I've got 4x squared minus 3x plus 2 minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 7. All right, so working through this problem, I've rewritten it, and now the next thing I'm going to do is, and again, there's more than one way to approach this problem, but my preferred method is to take this minus sign here and essentially distribute it through to each term. And I'm sure Mr. Thomas Wick showed you this method or something very similar, but this is just how I like to do it. So what I'm going to have after I do that is 4x squared minus 3x plus 2, because I haven't touched that at all. Now, I've got this negative that's going to go into the 3x squared, so now that's going to be, instead of a positive 3x, it's going to be negative 3x squared. And then a negative times this negative 4 makes that a positive 4x. And then this negative times the positive 7 gives us negative 7. All right, now my next job is to find and combine my like terms, because now I've basically turned this into an addition problem with a bunch of like terms. So 4x squared and negative 3x squared are like terms because they have the same variable with the same exponent. Negative 3x and positive 4x both have x's with an exponent of an understood 1, so those are like terms. And then my last pair is the constants, positive 7 and negative 7. Okay, make sure that when you're identifying those like terms, you're pulling in the sign that's in front of it, because that's going to tell you what operation to use. Now what I'm going to do, just to make my work a little bit easier and so I can see what I'm doing, is I'm going to use my commutative property to rearrange this problem so that I can see what I'm adding and subtracting a little bit easier. So I'm going to take my 4x squared and my negative 3x squared, I'm going to put them side by side. And then I'm going to take my minus 3x from here and my plus 4x from here and put those side by side. And then I'm going to deal with my constants, so plus 2 and negative 7. If you have trouble going from this step to this step, what you might want to do is, as you write one down, cross it out. So 4x squared, I wrote that down. Negative 3x squared, I wrote that down. Negative 3x, made it here. And then positive 4x. And then I've got my constants, plus 2 and minus 7, or negative 7. And because I can look up here and quickly see that I've crossed them all out, that means I didn't leave anybody out. Okay. So now I'm going to go through and actually combine those like terms. 4x squared minus 3x squared. Remember, I'm just looking at those coefficients. So 4 minus 3 is 1x squared. Then I'm going to look at negative 3, or minus 3, plus 4. A negative plus a positive, I'm going to subtract because my signs are different. So 4 minus 3 is 1, and I have more positives than negatives, so that's positive 1x. and then plus 2 minus 7, which you can think of as plus a negative 7 if you prefer. Again, my signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 7 minus 2 is 5. I have more negatives than I do positives, so that's negative 5. The last thing you could do is these 1s are kind of extra. You don't need them because 1 times x squared is just x squared. 1 times x is just x, and then I have my minus 5. Now, clearly that is not the same as what Harry got. You might notice that his first term is the same. We both got x squared as our first term. Our last terms are the same. We both got negative 5. That middle term is where the problem occurred. So when I'm checking his work up here, I'm going to focus in on that middle term. Those x terms are what's causing us trouble, or causing Harry trouble. Didn't cause us trouble. Okay, so let's check his first step. His first step, he rewrote the problem just like we did. That looks exactly the same. 4x squared minus 3x plus 2 minus 3x squared minus 4x plus 7. When I'm checking you guys' papers, I always check to make sure you wrote the problem down correctly first. That's a good thing to do. Next, we distributed that negative into the second term. So he's got his 4x squared minus 3x plus 2, same as we did. Then we wrote negative 3x squared. He did that. Positive 4x, because a negative times a negative is positive. Here's where the difference occurs. We have positive 4x. Let me highlight that so you can see. We've got positive. He's got negative. We know that a negative times a negative is positive. That's why we did that here. Oh, I circled that in the wrong spot. Ignore that for just a second. Let me erase that. We've already checked that row. Still, though, the error is the same. There's a negative 4x there when there should be a positive 4x. The negative 7 is correct, so it's that negative 4x that's causing him to get negative 7 instead of positive 1. So here's where the mistake happened. So when I'm answering the question, explain to Harry where he made his mistake, you would need to write a statement saying, let's see, saying Harry forgot that when he multiplied his negative times a negative, he got positive 4x. Or Harry forgot to distribute the negative to the second term of the expression. Or something to that effect, to let the person that's checking your work know that you know where he messed up. All right, I hope this was helpful and not too wordy. If you have any further questions, please let myself or your instructor know.